There's a maybe not universal, but pretty common experience that a lot of YouTubers share, but rarely gets talked about. Filming yourself before you start actually filming yourself, aka getting comfy on camera. Ow! We're off to a good start. First of all, before we go any further, I do want to note that all of my advice is given to you on a if you wanna basis. I really can't stand when people offer advice in a you must do this thing or absolutely never do this thing kind of way, even if their tips are based on lived experience, as in they did this thing and they know for a fact that it worked for them. That does not guarantee that it will work for everyone else or even anyone else. And if somebody says you absolutely must do it this way and then you try that and it doesn't work for you, that can end up feeling like you've done something wrong or made a mistake or there's just something wrong with you, and that is absolutely not the case. Very few things are sure, shall we say, especially in the world of content creation. There is not a definite path to follow that is guaranteed to work for anyone and everyone. So just in case I get bored of saying, if you want, or but you don't have to, as we go forward, I want to put it up front that all of my advice is followed in spirit by if you want, but you don't have to. That goes for this entire series of advice for YouTubers who make stuff and don't want to blow up. Was that the name that I gave it? Close enough. One of the most common things that I get asked about becoming a YouTuber, other than how much money do you make, is how did you get comfortable on camera? And I did have this weird vague period where I was like, I think I just was comfortable right from the start. Inaccurate. I had just forgotten about some stuff. Mostly stuff that happened around 2020, so maybe it just got mushed into that, we don't need to revisit those memories too often drawer in my brain. Despite having performance experience dating back to 6 years old when I played Smoke in my first ever dance recital and totally messed up the whole routine from the second that I ran through the giant foam fireplace, spending the bulk of the short song shrugging at my fellow ballerinas while searching for my proper mark on the floor. The photos are hilarious. The bulk of that performance experience was done on stage rather than on screen. Even in 4 years of college, we never once had an acting for the camera class. We were theater actors. Don't you bring that crappy camera in here. Actually, please do. Please film our performances, please. I would sometimes record myself singing on my phone. This was towards the end of college when smartphones had been around long enough to have filtered down into my hand. And every single time, I was appalled by the sound of my own voice. Recorded speech, just as bad. We did a little behind-the-scenes series with, like, interviews and stuff during my senior year when I directed a Cirque version of Peter Pan, and watching it back made me want to shrivel up and die.
So I was originally inspired by the story of Peter Pan itself, because it's such a classic and it's great for all ages. I mean, there's so much stuff in there that really is geared straight towards adults, along with the fun fairy tale level that appeals straight to kids. And I was considering directing the actual full show when I started taking lessons in aerial silks and training in all these aerial acts that we're doing now. And I thought, you know, this would be such a fun thing to combine. It would be so fun to take a classic story and create that image of flight via these circus acts.
Honestly, it's not much better watching it back now. Good times. And here's a bit of random, honest info for you. I still don't like seeing or hearing myself on camera when someone else recorded it. Which seems really weird, because I can officially say at this point that I am completely comfortable with my image and my voice on screen when I've recorded and edited it. That never stops being the worst thing to try to say. I do wonder nowadays how much of a thing this still is, like the cringing at the sound of your recorded voice. Like, that has been a super common trope, shall we say, since recordings became a thing. But like, so many people are constantly recording themselves and others now. Kids are growing up just being on screen all the time. And I'm not even talking about like influencer family kind of stuff. Just parents recording their kids for their own memory banks. Like, the means to do so is in your hand, so why would you not? But that makes me wonder if younger generations have this distaste for their recorded voice, because aren't they growing up frequently seeing and hearing themselves on screen? Is this one of those things that's going to just be completely forgotten and then turn into like this weird fact someday? Like, it used to be super weird to hear yourself on recordings because you almost never did. Anyway, that's just a random shower thought tangent. How did I actually get comfortable on camera? Why is there a knot in my thread? And how can you do the same? My very first YouTube videos were not made with the intention of becoming a YouTuber. The first 20 of them only feature voiceover twice, and if I recall correctly, that was because I hated hearing myself so much that I defaulted to time lapses and even written instructions on screen to avoid it. Also, oh my god, that was 6 years ago? That's one of those simultaneous, it feels like a lifetime ago and also it feels like yesterday kind of things. Once I started my channel for real on January 1st, 2021, I committed to voiceover. It was already starting to feel more normal just from having forced myself to do it a few times. Going back into the fabric over that loop to tack that loop down, tightening the thread around your needle so that we're making that knot right up against the fabric, and then bringing the needle all the way through. Pull slowly as you do this. If there's a knot that gets created because you're pulling really fast, you might never get that undone. So pull slowly for the best option of a really nice, beautiful French knot. I can tell two things from watching these tutorials back now, and slightly from my memory of making them. I can tell that it's coffee time. One, I was not scripting that voiceover. I'm pretty sure that I would film the tutorial, film myself doing the thing, and then like cut it down a little bit, and then watch it back and just sit there explaining into a mic what I was doing. And I remember this being a really poor method actually, at least for me at the time, for the type of videos that I was doing. Like, it took ages of cutting the footage down and then talking about what I was doing, but then needing to cut that down, but then having too much still and needing to put footage back in. It was very convoluted. I have a memory of spending 12 days editing a single embroidery tutorial. That was not sustainable for the type of channel that I was hoping to have. Two, I was cutting out every single breath, pause, and comma from my speech. It sounds really weird to me hearing it now because it doesn't follow my natural speech rhythms. I can tell it's all been mashed together in a weird way. And I can tell that this random coffee chart embroidery tutorial I stuck in the middle of the longer chain stitch series was actually scripted and not chopped up into such tiny bits. For the first time, my voiceover is starting to sound like me to me. Next up, let's fill in the coffee sections. I'm using 3031, a bit of a lighter brown, but still pretty dark. I'm going for a pretty realistic color palette on this one, but like I show in the pattern, you can get so creative with the colors. But the first time that I appeared on camera, my face talking, was May of that year. This video. Hey everyone, welcome to the Stitchery. I recently got really interested in needle lace, and at first I thought that it was a type of embroidery or an embroidery stitch, like chain stitch, satin stitch, lace stitch. And then one day I was avoiding going to bed by sitting needlessly on the toilet and scrolling through Instagram at 3 a.m. and I discovered Romanian needle lace, which I also thought was another embroidery stitch, like Romanian lace stitch. But I started doing a lot more research. I got very deep in my research that night because I can sleep when I'm dead. And I discovered that I was thinking about this all the wrong way. Needle lace is not a type of embroidery or an embroidery stitch, but rather a form of making lace using a needle and thread. And in retrospect, that feels like a really duh moment, I know, but I think I get very focused on my own art form sometimes and think that everything springs from that fountain. And you know what? It doesn't make me cringe as much as I thought it would, although I clearly need to move that camera back. I took talking head very seriously. I can tell that I'm performing, I can tell that I have a script, but it still basically sounds like me. It's not bad for a first time on camera, and that's because it wasn't my first time on camera. Y'all, I went digging back through my files, because I save everything, and I found a few videos titled The Stitchery Practice from way back when we lived in Florida, when I was making those first time lapses and avoiding voiceover.
Welcome to The Stitchery. I started embroidery as a hobby about a year ago after seeing the gorgeous embroidery on a lot of royal gowns on the displays in London. I've known how to machine and hand sew since I was a kid, so I thought, hey, I should be able to do that too. And I just started doing it, picking up hints and figuring out stuff as I went. But I guess I already had a backbone of information on how to embroider because I was trained to sew by an amazing seamstress, my mother, and spent a while working as a costume designer. The most common question I get when people see me embroidering or sewing somewhere after what you're making there is, what do you do when a piece of thread runs out? And that made me realize that maybe knowing how to thread a needle and not the end isn't a common thing. So I'm going to start this series of tutorial videos with the basics. How to prep an embroidery project. Hi, welcome to the Stitchery. I started embroidery as a hobby about a year ago after seeing the gorgeous embroidery on a lot of the royal gowns on display in London. I've known how to machine and hand sew for, ever. So I thought, hey, I should be able to do that, right? And I just started doing it, picking up hints and figuring stuff out as I went. Hi, my name is Charlie and welcome to the Stitchery. I started embroidery as a hobby about a year ago when I was in London and I saw all the gorgeous, gorgeous embroidery on the royal gowns on display there.
I have no memory of recording those, but apparently that was my first attempt at being on camera, at talking to the camera. The next attempt came in the beginning of 2021, and I think I actually explained my motives quite thoroughly in the footage itself, so I will just let you watch that. Sorry about the quality. It will be blurry the entire time.
Hi. What you doing? It's very warm lighting. Are we okay with that? I'm pretty okay with that. I'm told that's what you do if you're recording on two different devices. So I normally communicate through writing best. That's how I... He's playing with his toys now. Did you bring Mom your toy? This is his toy. He's eaten all of the stuffing out of it, and it smells disgusting. Do you want that? Rawr, 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 rawr. Go get it! This could be more difficult than I at first assumed, because he's decided to be exceptionally needy right now. Why am I vlogging? Okay. So, I don't normally like talking on camera unless it's scripted. I don't really mind if it's scripted or on stage. I don't like talking on stage unless it's scripted either. My public speaking attempts in the past have all been not embarrassing, but just, uncomfortable. Unless, it was like theater and there was a script and I had lines and then it's fine. And I haven't really had to talk on camera much before. I've always found my voice a little odd, but I think that's normal. We all hear our voices differently in our heads than they are in real life. So I'm getting used to that, namely because I have to do voiceover for my embroidery tutorials now. So I'm getting used to speaking into a microphone and hearing my own voice played back, and I'm getting used to how it sounds, and I'm accepting the tone of my voice. But I generally still find it pretty awkward to just film myself talking. So kudos to all the vloggers out there, but I never thought this was something that I would even attempt doing. And even right now, I'm not really attempting it for real. So this is more of a video diary than a vlog, because I don't know that I'll ever do anything with this. I am taking on a new project that uses new skills. Also, I'm continually looking at myself in the frame, which I've realized that I do anytime I'm FaceTiming or Zooming, Skyping, any of that. I look at myself rather than the lens. So, note to me looking back, does this look normal and regular?
Or does it look like I'm staring off into space? Or does this look like that good old interview thing where they're never quite looking at the camera, they're staring at an interviewer, and so it's like great steady eye connection? Or is this how it should be? Should I be looking into the camera? Because this is really distracting for me. I can see me on the screen, and I think if I need to look into the camera, I would have to close that screen because I can see me there, and it's distracting. That's our very loud neighbors. They like to just have conversations in the hallway. I probably shouldn't cover my mouth away from the microphone when I'm whispering. Okay, loud neighbors have gone inside. So, because I'm taking on a new project in the form of a YouTube channel, first of all, this is a slide about a bit of accountability for that, because as of now, all I've done is sort of create this trial. I've come up with the idea, but I would normally say like putting it off means that I'm not committed to it, but I'm putting it off because we are about to move, and I do very specifically want the videos that I create to have the connectivity of being in LA, in our new apartment, moving on from there. So it's pretty useless for me to do much more here other than like come up with ideas. I could make another trial video, but like, what is the point other than practice? It's better for me right now to focus on, pardon, I burp a lot too. That's me. It's more useful right now for me to focus on like the embroidery channel, because that's the one that is active right now, that I'm posting to right now, that I need to be consistent on. So my idea for this new YouTube channel is very much in holding right now. And by starting a video diary about the process, one, this is something that I think is just good for me to explore a new way of communication, or of it's a new form of communication. Even if I don't end up using this for anything, if it's not communicating with anyone else, I'm used to keeping things written in a journal, in a bunch of notes, in various documents and physical notebooks all over the place. And I think, considering how much I write these speeches in my head all the time, it would be interesting to sit down and actually try speaking my thoughts out loud, because instead I just usually play them over and over again in my head, and I don't usually write all of them down because there's too many, and it's usually when I'm in the shower or something, so I can't write them down. I'm already going off on tangents, and like, side note for the future of this, it's basically just going to be tangent land. It's going to be me going off on these giant rabbit trails that like you can't even remember what the original point is. I'm going to check my audio recording right now. It does appear to still be recording. This is all new to me. So, anyway, so I'm going to start doing this. I think just like once a week when Matt is gone at work, because again, I can't talk to a camera while there is anyone else present. I find that exceptionally uncomfortable. This is already uncomfortable enough for me. Like, clearly I'm finding something to like fiddle with my hands, because normally I'm always doing things with my hands. So yeah, I absolutely can't do it while somebody else is in the apartment. Like, just hearing somebody in the hallway outside made me want to shut up, because like, God forbid they could hear me doing this. I'm so easily embarrassed by random things, and then not embarrassed by like things that would normally embarrass people. It's good times. So hopefully that covers my point of why I'm talking to a camera right now in a video diary / vlog form.
People have various ways of filming themselves, of getting on camera with low stakes for no one to ever see before they actually start doing the thing. And it is so unsurprising to me that my choice was to sit down in front of a camera, talking head style, and ramble on a topic. That first session, I talked for over an hour and a half. So was I immediately comfortable on camera? Like I said in the video, you can tell that I'm not that comfortable by the way that I was incessantly picking at my fingers. But also, I clearly enjoyed myself right from the start. The irony is that the new project that I was talking about in that video was not the Stitchery, my main channel. It was The Delicate Common, a channel which I consider to be a failure. Not that that's a bad thing. 'Twas a failure I learned a lot from. But it was a channel on which I would not be talking to the camera at all. Part of the reason why it was a failure. I think ultimately deep down I knew that my strength, or at least my personal preference, would be using words, speaking words, doing this exact kind of video, even though I had not the slightest premonition that this channel would ever exist. That was January of 2021, and I kind of mostly kept up my goal of filming myself weekly, doing like a little video vlog every single week, up through April, which is when we moved to LA, and I started actually making those videos for The Delicate Common. Each session is super duper long, my thoughts on some random topic with tons of rabbit trails and tangents along the way, and they were filmed with the idea that no one ever needed to see them. Like, some of them are very personal. Although I think even then, it wasn't in my head that, like, no one will ever see these unless you die kind of thing. I was doing it for myself and not to be seen. But basically anytime I put myself on camera, just in the same way that anytime I put words onto paper or onto screen, I do have an underlying assumption that it might be viewed at some point. It's like a slight paranoia complex, I think. I stopped making video diaries when I felt that they were no longer necessary, which, as I just mentioned, was only like 4 months later. So I did adjust to being on camera fairly quickly, just as I adjusted to hearing my voice fairly quickly. That is going to be a different process for each person. It's going to take different lengths of time, different amount of prep work, etc. But getting into the practical advice portion of this video, if you want to get comfortable on camera, put yourself on camera. Don't worry about how you look, about the lighting, about the sound quality, about the frame composition. Don't worry about stumbling over your words, or long pauses where you try to think of what to say, or even just getting up and walking out of frame. This is not for anyone to ever see. You can even delete it the moment you're done. I love keeping everything because I love looking back and seeing the progress and where I've come from and stuff, but that's not everyone, and that's totally fine. I would highly recommend watching it back before you delete it if you're going to delete it. This is actually a two-part process. First, you are getting used to being on camera, to sitting down in front of a camera, to talking to the camera, to doing stuff on camera. And by the way, while you're doing that, you are simultaneously learning about angles and lighting and framing and composition. But the second part of this process is getting used to watching the footage of yourself, to listening to yourself talk. Because as I talked about in that editing advice video, unless you magically have an editor from day one, that is something you're going to have to do as a content creator. You need to get comfy being on camera, and you also need to get comfy watching yourself on screen. So start this process in whatever way is most accessible to you in your current situation and with your personal brain function. Maybe talking on camera is so intimidating that you need to start by just filming yourself silently doing a thing, making a project, doing a craft, just to get used to being seen on screen. Maybe over time, you'll start to feel comfortable making little comments to the camera, and then eventually having whole monologues of thought explaining your process and your plans, or chatting about something totally unrelated that you just felt like having a chat about. Or you might be the other way around, where talking on camera is not nearly as intimidating as being seen. Or maybe you never want to show yourself or your face on camera anyway. In that case, you could just record your voice on camera and listen to that back. Read out of a book. Tell yourself a story. Rant about something. Write a verbal letter to your younger self or your future self. Discuss a topic you're passionate about. Info dump. You can try sitting down with absolutely no plans and just see what comes out of your mouth, or you can prepare a prompt so you have something specific to talk about. Find a method that works for the place you are now, and then branch out over time according to the style of video that you hope to share with others someday. Maybe at first it is just filming yourself and then immediately deleting it. And then maybe you'll get to a point where you're comfortable watching it back yourself. And then maybe you'll get to a point where you're comfortable showing it to somebody else who you trust. I will note here, just because this is interesting to me, there's this weird thing that a lot of us have, where it is actually more comfortable for us to present ourselves online to total strangers than it is to present ourselves to people we already know in real life. This is actually really common. I very specifically hoped that no one I knew was watching my videos for a long time, and it is still weird to me to this day when family members or friends watch. That's something that you have to be okay with if you're going to post content online, unless you're going for like a super anonymous channel. But if you can't get to a point of being comfortable showing some footage directly to a family member or friend, I wouldn't consider that an obstacle to you becoming a content creator. That's actually pretty normal. And this is also a good time to point out that there are a lot of different video styles you could end up making. Video style is a topic for a different video. But if you aren't really comfortable showing your face on camera, you don't have to. You can be a faceless channel. If you don't like hearing your voice and you don't foresee yourself getting over that, you can be a silent or a voiceless channel. You can even do videos that are all voiceover, whether or not your face appears on screen, if talking directly to a camera is too overwhelming for you. And you can also start with video styles that you are currently comfortable with and then change to different styles down the road, because it is your channel and you can change whenever you want. Another option for the pre-content creation filming of yourself is to prepare a script. This might be helpful if you're really nervous about talking candidly on camera, but it is also a good thing to practice if you have any intention of using scripts in your eventual content. Scripted versus unscripted speech on camera are two rather different beasts. If you aren't totally sure that one of them will be your only method in the future, then I do recommend practicing both. I would advise starting unscripted, and then once you're pretty comfortable being on camera, talking on camera, branching out into performing a script. Although, as with anything, you may personally do better flipping this and doing scripts first. Write something fairly short for yourself. And by the way, this is something that I will get into later in a video about scripting, but a script can mean a set of word-for-word lines, or it can mean a collection of bullet point prompts. Practice it several times in a row. Try to observe whether in the moment or while watching it back, whether you are more natural, more yourself, the first time or after many, many takes. It could be either way. Sometimes the more you perform a script, the more it sinks into your body and your brain and comes out in your authentic voice. Sometimes the more you perform a script, the less that happens, the more performative you become. Keep in mind that the goal is natural, not perfect. It is okay to stumble over your words, to say the wrong thing, to have a false start, to correct yourself, or to pause in thought. In fact, I will often do bad takes on purpose. Mumbling, looking down or away from camera, not fully intaking my lines before I start talking. These bad takes can help you settle into yourself, calm down, and do a good take next. Or they can end up being the good take. Natural, not perfect. If looking down the barrel of the camera lens throws you off, try looking at yourself in the little screen of the camera. That's what I actually end up doing a lot. Usually not even on purpose. It seems weird, but it can be a little less intimidating. Or you can try angling yourself like you're conducting an interview and talk over here. This could be a style choice, Or it could just be practice, and it doesn't matter. If you've got a lav mic, or you're just still not worried about sound, you can turn around entirely. Talk like you're talking to somebody else. Talk to a wall. Let the camera become just an object in the room instead of the focal point of your nerves. And you definitely don't have to just sit and talk the way I chose to when I was first practicing. Everyone's going to have different preferences for what works best for them. Try giving yourself a task, doing your favorite craft, anything that will keep your hands busy, even if it's just petting an animal. You'll notice I still often keep my hands busy while I'm filming. Or again, you can just silently film yourself doing that craft, or even just doing some basic chores. Anything that will help you grow accustomed to having a camera pointed at you and to watching yourself back on screen. This is all just bits of like specific advice now, I guess, like random exercises you could try, because ultimately the answer to how do I get comfortable on camera is plain and simple, by being on camera. How do I get accustomed to the sound of my recorded voice? By recording it and listening to it. I think watching yourself back is the sort of hidden, more difficult part for people. Like, we tend to think first of getting comfortable being here with the camera there, but being at the computer watching this footage back is for a lot of people going to be the more difficult part. This isn't necessarily helpful to point out, but I think it is important to acknowledge. If you are editing yourself, that means watching the same bits of footage back over and over again. You are watching and listening to yourself for hours at a time, and I think it's important to take into consideration from the very start what effect that's going to have on you and your mental health. It may have no effect, it may have a positive effect, it may have a negative effect. We are all different. For some people, seeing themselves on screen may lead to a new level of appreciation for their physical form, for themselves as a human being. You may actually like yourself more seeing yourself from an outside perspective, or at least gain a new or wider understanding of yourself from that new perspective. Others may struggle with negative thoughts about themselves. Again, it is something you will get used to over time, seeing yourself on screen, but that doesn't mean that you're just magically going to be okay with it after 2 weeks or 6 months, or even just every single time you do it. Body image plays a big role here, and it can play an undulating role. You can be perfectly fine for a long time, and then suddenly find yourself hating how you look in a certain bit of footage. So all of this is not to be like, scary seeing yourself on screen. Not at all. I just think that you should stay aware, check in with yourself frequently, be kind to yourself, and take precautions to make sure that this will be long-term sustainable for your mental health without lasting negative effects. Again, I cannot stress enough that we are all different. The exact same thing can lead one person to love themselves more and another person to hate themselves more. So you just need to be on top of it and be paying attention. Because you are a beautiful, wonderful human being, and there is absolutely no reason why you should not appear on screen no matter what you look like, if that is what you want to do. I feel like I have to say that because I have heard at least 3 people say that at some point they felt like they weren't pretty enough to do YouTube, and like, no, that's not a thing. That's maybe a bigger thing to discuss in some future video, but it's not a real thing. You are worthy of being on camera. You are worthy of being on screen, no matter what you look like. This is not up for debate. It seems really daunting before you start, and I do have to acknowledge again that this journey is going to be different for everyone. I am speaking from a specific perspective in which this one area was pretty easy for me. The adjustment was fairly fast for me personally. That's kind of a personality thing though. That's like in my DNA. And it might also be in yours, and you might adjust way faster than you thought you would. I didn't know or even guess that I would adjust to being on camera that fast, or that I would enjoy it as much as I do. I just had to do it to learn. But also, we all have different DNA. It might not be fast and easy for you. That does not mean that you shouldn't try. It does not mean that you won't succeed, and it definitely does not mean that you can't be a YouTuber or a content creator. That felt like a weird double negative, but I think that was right. You can. While it's super common to film yourself before you start actually making the stuff that you want to put online, one thing I will warn you against is getting stuck in this phase. Only you can know if you're stuck. There's no like set time frame or hours logged like you're getting your learner's permit. You need to be able to examine your motives thoroughly and be honest with yourself. Have you been filming yourself and deleting the footage for 2 years because you still don't think you're ready to make it public? Maybe that's just where you are in your journey, but maybe you're using this as an excuse to not actually do the thing. And that is my final advice in this realm. You don't have to be fully comfortable being on camera or watching yourself on screen in order to start posting stuff online. Sometimes you just gotta do it scared. Because let's be honest, validation is a huge deal for a lot of brain types. Getting feedback, hopefully positive feedback, from some viewers might be that final hurdle that helps you go, oh, yeah, I can actually do this. Or you might keep doing it scared for years and years to come, because making the videos and sharing your passions and whatever your personal motivation is for being a YouTuber, see the previous video in the series if you aren't sure about your motivation, might be more important to you than your discomfort. That is also an option. And I found burping. I have put so many lines here, I don't know which one I'm supposed to follow anymore. Yo, I went digging back through my files because I save everything. Whoops, that was wrong. Good thing I hadn't committed yet. Oh god, nose. Wet. It's not. Gross. My very first YouTube videos were not... no, let's do this. Oh, you weren't done with this side. One of the most... Please hold while I just stitch for a minute because I found this suddenly very relaxing.